Hello. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me correctly and it can see me as well. Though seeing me is going to be the most important tonight. Yes, hello. Okay, I can see your comments now. I didn't know if anyone was here, if I was just by myself. Hello, everyone. My name is Marie. I've been here with Data Scientist for roughly 2 years now, and I will be talking to you about your career change and how you can talk about it during your interviews, on your resume, and on your LinkedIn profile. So this is going to be in English, but I do speak French. So if you have any questions in French or in English, don't hesitate to put them in the chats. I have the chats right under my eyes, so I'll just answer them as I go along. Really don't hesitate with your questions. This is a really informal, chilled discussion. So if you have anything you'd like to say, any comments you'd like to add to what I'm going to be saying, or whatever the case may be, do not hesitate. This is really a time for you to ask your questions. On entend deux voix. Bon à savoir. Okay. I'm going to move and then we'll just hear one voice. I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, this should be better. You should just be hearing me now. So as I was saying, we're going to be talking about career change. What does it mean? How do you integrate it in your recruitment process? How do you talk about it? Who do you talk about it to? All of those wonderful, nice questions. So I'm going to be talking about your resume, your LinkedIn profile, and I'm going to be giving you tips and tricks on interview questions and how to prepare yourself mentally for that whole recruitment process. Perfect, if you can hear me better. So I'm going to be sharing my screen and putting my head in small because that's not what you want to see. There you go. So I'm going to start off with, okay, now I can't see your comments, but I'll just pause from time to time to see if you have any questions or whatever. So first of all, in order to start this whole discussion and interaction on career change, I'd like to set grounding terms as to what it actually means, that we all have the same definition and we can all move forward from the same point. So a career change is basically a person that is either going to change their field or going to change positions after, for example, a training course in data science or just another life-altering move or experience that makes them want to do something different. This means that it's just not necessarily linked to one certain aspect of your job, but more as a whole. It's an entire field, an entire position. This means that there are more substantial changes than just one task. And this also means that your whole responsibilities and everything you're going to be dealing with, the subjects you're going to be dealing with, are going to be very different. And you're going to have to develop a whole new set of skills, whether they be soft or hard skills, which we will be talking about later on. And also means that you're going to be interacting with a whole new different panel of people. And this also means that you're going to have to adapt your discourse, your posture, all of that in order to cater for those new people and the new responsibilities, etc. So an Indeed survey, said that over 13% of people that are that have a job today want to change their careers. And to me, this reveals a lot with regards to our system and how flexible it is, and what we also ask of employees today. When you want to go up in the ladder or in the hierarchy, you will be asked to have more than one set of skills and to just evolve in your work process and thought process and just how you work generally and globally. And so that means that you have to have complementary skills to your basic skill set. And going through a career change is the epitome of that. So it's something that many people do today. You are not alone. And that means that the workforce and also the recruitment process has adapted to those profiles that have more than one set of skills, and also makes room for different experiences, different life paths, and just generally different experiences. And so that's very important and reassuring as well, because that means that the HRs that you're going to be dealing with are actually aware of how it works and will recognize career changes as a resource rather than something that's bothersome or as a limit rather. So when do you start mentioning your career change? I take it that most of you are doing a training course today and will be going into a different direction. And so that is something that you have to visibly show on different platforms and throughout your recruitment process. And so you're going to start by showing it on your CV/resume. I'll show you an example of that later on. You have to show it on LinkedIn, which is very important as well. If you are trying to write to a company, write to a person, that's something that you put in writing as well. And it's also very important to mention your career change during an interview. So I already did a talk like this on interviews specifically, so that's not going to be our focus. Tonight we are going to be talking about CV and LinkedIn. But if you wanted to talk about something else afterwards, we can do that, no problem. So the first step when you try to get into a career change is to just spend time with yourself first and to ask yourself a different set of questions with regards to what it is you want to do, why you want to do it, and how do you want to do it. So the first question I think is very important is, why is your career evolving? Is it linked to something that happened to you in your professional life? Is it something that is completely different? Is it something that was premeditated? Whatever the case may be, try to just pinpoint one or several reasons, because that's going to enable you to work through the recruitment process with a clearer mind, a clearer headspace, and also it's going to be able to give a lot of arguments that you're going to need in order to justify your career change. And try to pinpoint, what do you stand to gain? Why would you want to do why would you take such a risk? Because it is a risk. It's something very different, it's something new, something that you don't know of usually. And why do you want to do that? Try to, again, have one or two sentences, even just for yourselves, that you know where you're going, and going to try to create a roadmap for this career change. Where do you want to go? These are very important questions. My little tip is to just sit in front of a wall, whatever, just something that's very blank. Take a blank piece of paper, take a pen, and just write it all down, because you'll notice that you might have lots of ideas in your head. It might seem all very clear in your head, but once you try to get it out, to explain it to someone or just write it on paper, it's a lot more difficult than it seems. And usually it transforms a bit. It's not as clear as it is in your head. And it's very important for you to just be very focused on what it is that you want, why you want it. So ask yourself those questions. And once you have those answers, it will be a lot easier for you to just visualize yourself in a certain fields or in a certain position. It's very important. And also, it will give you the clarity you need to push through, because looking for a job, it's not easy. It's a time-consuming process. It's very stressful. So just trying to have the right reasoning might help you get through that a lot easier. Next, try to look at your current skill sets. What do you know how to do now, whether it be technically or more relationship-wise? soft skills, hard skills, whatever the case may be. Just try to look at what you know how to do, make a list, and try to focus on those that you like to develop, those that you think you would like to need or to use on a daily basis, and those that you might want to leave behind. For example, if you're a manager today and you have, well, managing skills, and managing is something that you're very tired of, you don't want to be managing a team anymore, you want to be by yourself, or you want to be managed by someone else because you want to learn new processes and you whatever, that's totally fine. Just make sure that you're aware of that, so that you will be looking for job applications that refer to those specific skill sets. So again, just try to make a list, really write it out in paper, make a list, and it's going to be useful for your CV, for your LinkedIn, whatever the case may be, for your cover letter. Just having those skills written out is going to be very useful. I'll just stop 1 second, see if there are any questions in the chat. Okay, no questions. I hope it's because I'm very clear and not because I have lost you. Okay, there we go. Okay, so as I was saying, skill sets. What do you know how to do, and what do you want to work on? This could be complementary to your training in data sciences. It might be linked to that directly. Whatever the case may be, just try to write it out. Have a mind map of how you want to work through them, and use that as the basis for every one of the recruitment process steps. Very important. Then the final step when you are just thinking about going through a career change is, what is your motivation? What is the reasoning behind? It goes back to my first point, but what is the reasoning behind this career change? And try to find what drives you as a human being and as a person that is trying to work through life professionally. Those are two very different things, and try to find the drivers for both, and then use that as a way to direct your candidacies and just the recruitment process as a whole. It's always very interesting as an HR person to just see someone that knows where they are going and that link all of their experiences or all of their life choices to one certain reason or argument or experience or whatever. Just make sure that you have this, that you know where you're going, and that you have a clear idea of why your life looks the way it is now. It seems very far-fetched and very theoretical when you say it like that, but it's actually very important to just be able to sit down and know where you're going. It's something that's going to help you write everything that you're going to have to go through the recruitment process, yes, but it's also something that is going to be useful for you during your professional career, and just be able to sit down and look at where you want to go. It's also very important for you to map out the evolution that you want to go through. For example, if you want to find a job as a data scientist, imagine that in like 2 or 3 years you want to be a senior data scientist, and maybe in 10 years you want to be CTO of a startup or whatever. Just try to make sure that you have a plan and that you can work your way around it during the recruitment process. Write it out maybe like in your cover letter or during interviews. And that reflection stems from, why do you want to do a career change? It might be because you were frustrated previously, because you want to develop new skills, or because you wanted to see something different, or you saw a problem and you had the answer to it. Whatever the case may be, try to find something that drives you. And from that, you will be a lot more competitive on the market, because you know where you are going, and you will be able to link all your skill sets and everything you know how to do and that you've learned. Lights are off. That you learned during your training course. So there's no lights. Doesn't matter. That you learned during your training course. And now I lost my sentence. Whatever. So just try to just make sure that all your skills and all of that are linked to one single chain of thought. So let's get into it now. We'll start with LinkedIn. So how this is going to work, I'm going to alternate between my slides and my very own LinkedIn, because I'm currently doing an internship in another company. So it could be interesting for you to see how I'm articulating, or how I would articulate my LinkedIn profile if I were looking for a job. So first of all, this relates back to what I was just saying, but we want to see a common thread to your experiences. Make it make sense. That's very important. And that is something that you write out literally in the About section of your LinkedIn. And you want to just make sure that the recruiter understands everything. A recruiter, they see so many LinkedIns all the time. They don't have time to think about why you would be doing that or whatever. They just want to see the information straight away. If it's not written out, then they won't know about it. They won't guess it. So let's try to minimize the guessing work and just put it all in writing. Say that you used to do something previously, that now you decided to change your career paths. Why are you doing it? What's the goal? All of that are things that you should see on your LinkedIn. And that should be in the About section specifically. For example, here, mine's a bit vacant. You should be putting previously, or actually, I am written a bit prettier, but I am a data scientist in the field of mechanics, whatever. These are just random examples. Previously, I was blah, blah, blah. Then I decided to follow a training course, blah, 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 blah. And this enables me to be proficient in both blah, 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 both fields. This could be fields, this could be, for example, acquisition paths, or what, for example, you could put B2C and B2B sectors or processes or whatever, but just try to map it out and just explicitly say what you're now, what you would like to do now, what you did previously, why you changed, and why you decided to go somewhere else. For example, it could just be because you wanted to move into the field of, what do I put here, mechanics or artificial intelligence or whatever. And then just say that, write it out, that this makes you proficient in 2 different sectors or in 2 different career paths or whatever. Just write it out. It's very important for us to understand that you know how to do 2 different things. And just sell yourself. Don't make it seem that you are just a junior that has very little soft skills, hard skills, and that has no previous professional experience or corporate experience or whatever. You already do have that experience. So try to single out why that's important to you and why that makes you a better employee or a better employer if you're already high up in the hierarchy. But try to really pinpoint what this adds to your profile and write it out. Write it out in the About section. Is the first thing that you see as a recruiter. Most people read it all the time, so just write it out. You could use emojis if you want to. You could use hashtags if you want to. Whatever the case may be, just try to just make it as visually attractive as possible. And you could also go through a different path by saying, for example, today I am a data whatever analyst with a particular skill set in. And then you could put one skill, second skill, third skill. And to conclude, and just try to integrate your previous career and the career that you'd like to do now in these bullet points. Or for example, you could say, I'm a data analyst with experience as an X marketing what do you marketing, or what do you do as an X community manager that knows how to, and then you could, for example, put here use Python or do machine learning or whatever, or use Power BI. Just try to find a way to just integrate your previous experiences and what you like to do, and just to link them together, make sure that make them see that it's all relevant and that they all mesh up really nicely, and that your previous skills are something that you are going to be using in your day-to-day job in the world of data sciences. So that's the first thing. Yes, discard. Next, try to illustrate in your experience section the soft and hard skills that you acquired previously, and those that you also acquired during your training course, and try to find already articulate thoughts explaining why those hard skills / soft skills are relevant in the world of data sciences today. It's not something that you can necessarily write out on your LinkedIn profile or on your resume, but it is something that you could use as arguments during the interview phases. So just try to pinpoint which hard skills you're going to be writing out and what do they add to your new career as a data scientist, engineer, analyst, manager, whatever it is that you're trying to do. Try to just link that job with your previous skill set and make it make sense. Make the recruiter see that, yes, of course, having someone that used to be a community manager is the best thing for their company because you know how to deal with, I don't know, social media or whatever. Just try to find something that makes you the best candidate because you have all those skill sets, all those skills that a person that only did data sciences would not have. And that's something that you can put in this section over here. For example, if I were looking right now for a job, or if I just wanted to try to make my LinkedIn a bit better, I would write hard skills and then list a couple, like 1 or 2 or 3, and then soft skills, 1, 2, 3. And what is very, very important is to illustrate your skills. Don't just put dynamic and data visualization with Tableau, for example. That's just a random example, but don't just put that as is. Try to add capstone project with presenting to a panel of experts on I don't know, football results, predictions or something. Try to illustrate every skill that you're going to add to your profile. Don't be too verbose. Try to have something that's quite short, like my sentence is already quite long. Try to go for something that's a bit more readable and just make sure it gets straight to the point, especially for your soft skills. Try to add a bit more of why you have that skill. Not too much, but something that's very important. It's something that I always say to people when they're looking for a job. Make sure that the recruiter understands why you have those skills. It's something that's always going to add to your profile. It's something that could start up a conversation during an interview. So just try to explain why you have that certain skill always. And that should go for your CV, for your whatever. just always try to illustrate why you are a certain way or why you know how to do something. And even for your interview process, for the interview parts, if they ask you, for example, what your biggest quality is, and you're going to say that you're very patient, I am patient, because it's always very important to add that little illustration or example or something. It's going to make all the difference during your recruitment process. So that was the first thing, first 2 points with preparing your LinkedIn profile. Also, what's something that's been going around these past few months is people that write here, for example, instead of what they do now, they say, for example, data scientist, ex community manager, which is a way to go. You can put that as is, what you want to do now and what your previous job title was. You can do that, but make sure that you are ready to justify the change and that you have very solid arguments. And also, if you put it as your headline, you might want to write down explicitly again in the about section why you're changing and why being a community manager is actually helpful to becoming a data scientist. It's something that's, when you write it out like that, it's very, you're putting yourself out there as someone that's changing their career path, and which is fine, but just make sure that you have the arguments to back it. Otherwise, it's just going to be a hassle, not worth it. So either go down the more traditional road with just explaining it briefly in the about section, or if you want to be very visible, just put it in your headline or whatever, and just explain it then in the about section. Bottom line is always explain what you're doing and why, and have the examples ready. Are there any questions? I think the session is recorded. I can't say. I think so. Try to say that you are a okay. There's an interesting question whether to say that. I'll just stop doing that. There you go. If you just okay, let me think about my answer. The question is, I am a data scientist, or should I say I want to apply for a data scientist position? In your headline, write it down as is. Just say that you are a data scientist. That's in your headline. Just say data scientist or junior data scientist, junior data analyst, or whatever. And then in the about section, you can start your sentence by saying, as an ex-community manager that trained in data sciences, I'm now looking for a job as a data scientist. But the headline should be a lot shorter, so just go for data scientist. And in the about section, you could turn it a bit differently, but if you want to make it nice and easy and just go for the simpler route, go for I am a data scientist. And also it shows that you're a lot more confident in your skill set and you know what you want to do, which is always the best way to go. So to answer your question, it was a very long answer for a very simple question. Just put I am a data scientist and I'm looking for a job as a data scientist or whatever, but just say that you are a data scientist and not that you are training to become or you would like to become. You already are. If you did a training course, technically you already are a data scientist, and now it's just a question of whether you believe it or not. And I'd rather you believe that you are a data scientist and that you already have those skills. So just go for saying that you are a data scientist. I hope that answers your question. Is there a website where we can work with real data from companies in order to make analysis visualization so we can add them to our portfolio? Yes, there's lots of them. Okay, I'll just answer that first question. So there's a lot of them. If you speak French, I don't know if you do, but government data is actually very useful and it's very detailed, and you can use government data quite easily. Otherwise, there's another website that I've just forgot the name of. I'll just ask. I'll get back to you in that question I've just asked. But there are quite a few websites. But if you just look for open source, Kaggle, that's it. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it in English, but I've just put it in the chat. Yes, Kaggle is the best for open source data. That you can find everything and anything. Companies very often publish their data on that website. So that's one way of going. Otherwise, you could just go, for example, for just any government data, or INSEE if you're French, which is the statistics institution. They have a lot of open source data. And yes, otherwise you just look for open source data on Google or whatever, and you'll find a lot of data sets that you could work with. Should we consider a word number limit in the section about of LinkedIn? It's very important. Try to think of it more as something that is visual rather than actual word count. So for example, let me just share my screen again. For example, in this about section, it's always going to be a lot nicer to read if you have one sentence, another sentence, then like this. If it's something that is airy, that is breathable, and where you can see the different paragraphs. Try to rather space it out, even if it makes you write less, rather than having a huge block of text that no one's going to read because it just looks daunting. So rather write less and just space it out. Use hashtags if you know how to use them. Lights are gone again. Or just use different types of typos, and just make use of those visual aspects and tools rather than writing out as much information as you can. Rather write less and write it nicer than writing more and writing it as a whole block of text that no one's going to read. And I saw that there was another question. Yes, definitely. If you're going to start working with open source data, which is something I definitely recommend because it's something that is very useful for your own skill set and just as a data scientist or data analyst or whatever in general, try to find a set of fields that you're interested in and how, or just a position that you like to work with or a company you like to work with or whatever, and find data sets that are related to that company, field, etc., and try to work with it and try to find thesis statements or issues or just general questions that you could use during the recruitment process, making sure that you understand what their big themes are and how they deal with data, what they're trying to work on, what their goals are, what their hypotheses are if you're more in the research field, and just try to make sure that you understand what they're dealing with and what their subjects are. And the best way to do that is actually to just look at the data and to make your own hypotheses. And also what you could do if that is possible, it just depends on your career path, but it's just looking at your previous field, looking at the field that you like to work in now and how are they related, and try to find data sets that explain that. Or otherwise, if you're just looking for now to just work as a data scientist wherever, try to find a data set or just have a project that shows recruiters why becoming a data scientist in your previous field was necessary for you to evolve. For example, you could say that previously as a community manager, you saw that there was this problem, or that you couldn't really analyze the data because you had too little skills and you faced problems that you just could not resolve or deal with because of those limited skills, and that becoming a data analyst was the only way to go. Just try to find that and then show what you could analyze previously, and then show how you can analyze the data now, show how you've evolved. And that is one way of selling your candidacy and also selling your career change. Okay, for career gaps, I'm going to talk about them in a couple of slides, but it just basically goes down to explaining why you took a career gap, and just finding one argument. Taking a career gap, there's nothing wrong with it. There's a very big stigma around it, but it's a very simple thing to work your way around. For example, just try to find one training course, try to find one single skill that you developed during that time, and say that that is why you needed to take time off, because you wanted to become proficient, I don't know, in another language. You wanted to learn how to use, I don't know, Python, whatever. Just try to find one thing that you learned and then turn the entire career gap around that certain skill set. And that works miracles every time. Recruiters are fine with people taking time off, even if it's, or especially, for example, if it's to take care of their kids or whatever. There's nothing wrong with taking like a step back from a professional career. They just want to see that you knew what you were doing and that it brought you to a certain place that is going to be useful for them. So usually that's just showing that you know how you just acquired a skill, and that does wonders, honestly. Is there a different strategy if you want to search for freelancing jobs and missions? Yes, it's very different. The way you present yourself is very different. I'm not going to go into too much detail now because that's not the topic, but we do have some resources on the Notion platform if you want to look into that. But basically, if you're looking for a freelance job or mission, the goal is to show recruiters that you know how to identify problems and that you know how to answer very specific problems. Because when you're looking for a more general data scientist field job or whatever, you're going to tackle many different problems, many different issues. You're going to go into a lot more detail on certain things that you wouldn't see as a freelancer. And so the goal when you're looking for a normal job, let's say, is to show that you're very flexible and that you have a very large set of skills. Whereas when you're trying to work as a freelancer, it's usually best to know what you're very good at and what you like to work most with or on or with whom. You have to have answers to those very specific questions, and you have to use them as your arms to just get there and make sure you get that job. Whereas if you don't necessarily know where you want to go, if this whole world of data science is very new to you and you just want to discover everything that there is, then going for a more regular job is usually the way to go. I hope that kind of answers your question. What would be the best way to provide work examples in form of a work on data set in a notebook? Yes. GitHub is going to be your best friend when you work or when you're looking for, not your best friend, but it's going to become a very good friend of yours when you're looking for a job and even later on in the world of data sciences, because it's something that everyone knows of and so you can update very regularly, and it's an easy tool for you to show what you know how to do. So what I say to all the candidates is to just have on your CV under the LinkedIn, when you link your LinkedIn, link your GitHub as well, your GitHub profile, and do that. Put it as well in your LinkedIn, just put it everywhere. You could even put it in your signature if you're writing emails. It's just a nice way to just make people understand that you know what you're talking about. So that's the best way of showing you know what you're doing. And also you can add, if that's something that you're very good at or that you work constantly towards, by that meaning developing your GitHub profile, just add a section on your CV where you just put, for example, data science projects above your experiences or beneath your experiences. And you could write out the title and just explain it, give a brief overview of what you did and what you achieved, what were your results, whatever. And just you can list 2 or 3 if that's something that you're very focused on. Otherwise, yeah, just adding a GitHub is the easiest way to go. But even if you just do one data science project, if you just did the capstone project, that you can do during your training course and just add it. So you can still add your GitHub, whatever you do, even if there's just one project on there. What if your previous career doesn't match your aspired career choice? like you want to become a data engineer, we have background in teaching pedagogy. Okay, so that refers to what we were saying previously. Find skills that you acquired as a teacher. That is very, very important, and it can't just be soft skills. Soft skills work wonders in the recruitment process if you know how to just use them and sell them. You have to sell yourself with those soft skills, because the big stereotype, which I find is usually proven true, is that engineers and scientific people, oh, the lights are on, aren't very good at expressing themselves verbally, aren't the best with their soft skills, are very good behind a computer, but when you actually ask them to explain something, it's a lot harder. It's a stereotype, yes, but it's also quite the truth. So as a teacher, usually that means that you know how to explain things, you know how to adapt yourself to different situations, to different profiles, you know how to change your explanation of a single subject with regard to whom you're speaking to. That was a hassle. And just find those little arguments and just sell them, use them. Whatever you did previously is going to be relevant in the field of data sciences. Whatever you did, it could, even if you worked at McDonald's or whatever, what you learned, your skill set is going to be useful. You just have to find ways to explain it, and it's not easy, of course. It's sometimes you just don't see the links, but there are always links, and if they are not in the hard skills, then they're going to be in the soft skills. It's very important. So again, just write down a list of what being a teacher enabled you to acquire as a skill set, and then just work from that. And also what you could do if you're really out of ideas is just look for on LinkedIn or whatever job offers for senior data scientists, senior data analysts, whatever, and look at the soft skills and then see what you already have thanks to your previous experiences and just link it to that. It's just a nice little trick. If you don't know where to start, just look at those job offers and link them back to your experiences. So there's a question on preparing your GitHub profile correctly. I think there's a masterclass during your training course. I don't know what training course you're doing, but if you are doing a training course, but it's something that's already included in the training course. So I'm not going to go over that again, but otherwise I do believe, I'm relatively certain that we already did a recording or a meeting or whatever on that subject. So if you just look through our LinkedIn or the previous lives or whatever, I think you should find one over there. Or otherwise, it's in the training course. Each one of our training courses has a nice presentation of GitHub. There's a question on more information on freelancing jobs. If you are doing one of our training courses, then there's the Notion platform. That's the career services platform, and there's an article on freelancing jobs. You could just look through your Slack chat and you'll find it over there. What can I do with an empty year on my resume profile? So that goes back to what I was saying previously. Just find one skill that you acquired, and even if it wasn't necessarily during that time, doesn't matter. Find one skill and then just one or two skills and say that you needed that time off to work on that skill. That's the easiest way to go through it. What can I do with okay, that was the last question. I'm going to go back to my slides. Otherwise, I'm going to finish a lot later than was planned. So, and the next slide, I believe, is on career changes. So, on LinkedIn, you can explain all the breaks that you've made throughout the years. And my way of looking at them is just insisting on the skills that you acquired. There's a lot of different ways you can go with it, or you can go around it. That's just how I prefer to do it, because I think that's the most concrete. And recruiters, look for concrete information, skills, whatever. So if you can, just work at it with your skills and show the goal. The end goal is always to show that what you did was justified. It wasn't just a spur of the moment choice. It was something that you thought about previously and that was included in your life plan. It might not necessarily be the case. It doesn't matter. Just show the recruiter that you thought about it before doing it, and that enabled you to acquire something, that you got something out of it. That's very important. Just show, even if it's a 10-year gap and that you did one training course and that training course enabled you to, I don't know, bake. I don't know, whatever the case may be. Just try to find one single thing that you acquired during your time off that could be useful in the job. And if it's not useful, for example, you could say, what's the link between baking and data sciences? I don't know, find something. When you bake, you deal with precise measurements, and it's something that needs you to be focused for a long period of time. Use that as a way to become the best employee that a recruiter could hire. That's very important. Also, when you're talking about your career change, don't hesitate to write out why that is relevant to the profile, to the recruiter or the company, and talk directly to those recruiters and anticipate their questions, and just try to turn your entire LinkedIn or CV or whatever towards that person, and lights are off, and to just understand what their thought process is, and to just find the answers or anticipate the answers to their questions. And so that also means that you will always be able to find something that is interesting in your previous experiences. And the goal is not for the recruiter to have to go and look for that information, but for you to present it directly and to write it out in your documents so that they know about it, and so that they don't have to just look for it, because not all recruiters will look for the link between your previous career and your new career change. They won't always see how it is relevant, and they might just say, okay, you did that previously, book is closed, you're opening a new book. No, make it look as just a new page turning or a new chapter or whatever, and that there is a link between what you did previously and what you're doing now or what you would like to do. Just find that link and write it out. We want to see it all over. Just splatter it on every page you have. It's going to be a lot easier to stand out, which is always the goal. And so one way of turning your career change, which is something that I recommend if you don't know where to start, is to say that you are a flexible person, and that upskilling, reskilling, whatever, is something that you know how to do. Recruiters today, they look for people that can train themselves in new technologies on a daily basis, and that just know how to intake large amounts of new knowledge all the time. And so you right now, that's exactly what you're doing. So it's not like you're inventing a new personality or whatever. You are already learning new skills and going through them differently than you might have done previously. I don't know if you've all had, distance training courses or whatever. So just show that is an advantage. That's a quality that you have, that you possess now, and that it's going to be very useful for recruiters. You'll see that most job offers, they look for someone they usually just say flexible, or in French it says, what does it say? Monter en compétence. They love to put that everywhere. It doesn't mean anything anymore, but they just love to put it. So if you don't know where to start, just say that you're used to self-training and upskilling and reskilling, and recruiters love it, and show what are the skills that you've been acquiring and how do they help the recruiter, how do they help the company, the job, whatever, the team. Just try to really find links. And again, as I said at the very beginning, try to illustrate all those skills. That's very important. Say, okay, I've been learning new things. I know how to learn new things by myself. I know how to document myself behind a computer. That's something that I know. This is what I learned through my previous processes. And this is why those are useful to you. That was a very long sentence. Here are a few mistakes that you should avoid when changing your career paths. First of all, making it the focus of your profile. Yes, it's important to talk about it. Yes, the more you explain and the more you justify your career change, the easier it's going to be during the recruitment process. But that's not the only thing that defines you. You are still, first and foremost, a data scientist, a data analyst, engineer, manager, whatever. And recruiters want to see what you know how to do within that scope. And then icing on the cake is understanding your career change. That's usually the first question that comes to mind as a recruiter, but that's the first question that comes to mind after they've read your whole portfolio. Because if the first explanation of why you're a good data scientist isn't there or is lacking, then they're not even going to ask themselves the question of why are you changing careers? That's not even going to come up. That's not going to be relevant. We want to make sure that it is relevant and that you explain it nicely. But first and foremost, you are someone that is trying to work in the field of data sciences. And so that means that you have to explain yourself, justify yourself, illustrate what you know how to do. What are your hard skills? What are your soft skills? And how do they all work together with your previous career? But that's very, very, very important. Then, when you just try to ramble on and to explain why you did that previously and then why you changed your careers and why that skill's interesting and blah, 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 and just go through all those different directions and you just lose yourself in your wording. Usually that means that you're going to have to recognize if you're going all over the place, just means that you have just paragraphs and paragraphs of text that no one's is going to read, even if you're in your cover letter. If it's just too much and if you just see words all over, it means you're going all over the place. Try to, again, summarize what you know how to do. Find 1 or 2 or 3 bullet points, and that's it. Have a single way of defining your career change and work your way around it, illustrate it. Rather have a single argument and then 1, 2, or 3 bullet points to illustrate that, rather than going all over the place. And then what's very important is also to link your previous performances and achievements to your new career and show that you being the best employee or whatever you did is going to be relevant, not just because of the skills that you acquired, but because you did good on your previous job. And recruiters love to see that. It's important to see that you were good at what you did and you just didn't change because it was too hard. And it might have been that, but try to turn it in a way that makes your career change seem as a logical evolution of your career path or whatever, or of your professional experiences. What scares recruiters today, especially in bigger companies, is when they have a person that has worked, 10, 15, 20 years in another field, in another company, and they don't know if they're going to be able to adapt and be a right fit. So your goal is to show that you know how to be flexible, you know how to change. And like you're off, the best way to do that is to just say that you're following a training course online that is time consuming, that is hard, and you're doing it. You're pushing through, you're learning different skills, all of those things you are doing, and they are making you learn so many different skills, so many different just methods as well. Make sure that they know that you have acquired those data science methods, and also that you just know how to, or just change the way you work, change the way you see your work, change the way you work with other people in order to make room for the new goals and the requirements of your training course, and then just transfer those skills to the company, to the new sector, whatever, and just write a nice sentence as to why they are relevant. Again, you already have all those skills. You already have all the ingredients. Now the goal is to make a nice recipe, rather nice cake, whatever. You already have all the information. Now you just want to know how to organize them in a very nice and sophisticated way. So little tips, and then I'll check the chat for questions. If you do not know where you are going, if you do not have a single if you don't have one train of thought, then don't mention it. If it's going to be words on a piece of paper for nothing, they're just going to take up space, then we don't want to see them. If you're going to mention something, then it means that it is justified. You have examples. You know why it's relevant to your career change, to your career as a data scientist, whatever. If it's there just to be pretty, then goodbye. We don't want any trophy wives or husbands on your CVs, LinkedIn's, whatever. We need to have something that is that is relevant, and that is relevant. If we just want to understand why it's written out, otherwise just don't write it. Then use your previous experiences and skills to differentiate yourself from other candidates. So that seems obvious to me now after having said all of those things. But once you've defined yourself as the best data scientist out there, because you have those hard skills, you have those soft skills, blah, 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 thanks to the training course. I'm not saying that you need anything other than the training course that you've been doing now. Use all your previous experiences, skill sets, whatever, as the icing on the cake, the cherry on top, all of that. Just make sure that it's there to put yourself forward and to flourish, for you to enable you to flourish in the world of data sciences, rather than something that is complementary. Show that they are all linked to one another. Then anticipate the hierarchy of the position that you're applying for. So that's what I was mentioning earlier. Go look at those job offers and link your previous experiences, previous skill sets to those job offers. And that's going to be a nice way for you to just articulate them and see that you are in fact relevant. Well, you are relevant. Your entire experiences were relevant to the field of data sciences. And then for the recruitment process, or the interview process rather, try to sell yourself in every situation you find yourself to be in. Don't degrade yourself. Don't say, oh yes, I was a community manager, but that's just not relevant. No, of course it's relevant. You've learned how to work under pressure. You've learned how to work responsibilities, how to have a 9 to 5, an 8 to 8, an 8 to, 10, whatever. Show that you've learned so many different things that are going to make you the best employee in a different company, with irrelevant of the hard skills. Just show that you've already worked with different people, you've adapted yourself to different situations, and that's going to be a very interesting and important factor for the next company you're going to be working for. So to summarize, make sure that you are within the norms of the field you're applying to, and the easiest way to do that is just looking at job offers. Then give the recruiter all the information. Don't ask for them, don't wait for them to come and fetch you. Just give it all, put it all in a platter, hand it to them, make sure that they digest it in the best way, meaning that it has to be visually attractive. Don't put too many information, and just make sure that they see it. Make sure that the first thing they see on your LinkedIn profile is that you know where you're going, and that what you did previously is just very important to your profile. And then make sure that what's written out on your LinkedIn, on your resume, is going to be the basis of your interview process. And make sure that you're going to use it, and don't separate yourself from this LinkedIn persona. If you're going to say that being a community manager was the best thing that has ever happened to you, and it's the best thing that's going to happen to the recruiter, then explain why during the interview process. Try to bounce off what you said previously, or what you've written out previously, so that they know that you are coherent, and that you do have arguments, and that everything that is written out was done because of a certain reason, and that you already knew where you wanted to go with that information. I don't know if I am being very clear. In my head I am, so I hope you are all understanding me as well. Okay, so questions. Does this work? 10 years to acquire. Okay, so there's one question, or one comment rather, on taking a career gap and how you explain it. You can also just be honest. Say that you took 10 years off to look after your family, or to just work on personal projects or whatever. But then say that once you were in the headspace to just go back to the professional field, or to just get back into work mode, once you were in that headspace, you decided to acquire new skills. So you don't have to say it took me 10 years to, I don't know, use Power BI, but say that once you decided that you wanted to work again, you acquired that new skill. So it's just a way of wording things, and saying that once you decide to do something, you gave yourself the necessary time to be prepared for it, but also you just made sure that you had the right skill sets to get into it. I hope that answers your question. Yes, at the end of the training, data scientist will help you revamp your CV. You can just contact them anytime and make an appointment, or you can just join the different career services meetings that happen every month, I believe, and that talk more, that go in depth on your CV, LinkedIn, all of that. Medical background from experience, and went back to school where I studied international business in France, and thereafter enrolled in the data analysis program. So that's exactly what I was saying previously. Just say it as is, and say that once you decided to get back into the world of whatever, just once you decide to go back into the professional world, then you decided to go study international business in France. And you recognize you didn't have all the skill sets that you needed, but now you are proficient in business. Now you're trying to follow a course in data science, so you're proficient in that as well. And that gives you a whole lot of skills that are very important. And you could also say that your vision needed fine-tuning, or your life path needed fine-tuning, and that enrolling in different courses was the way to do it. That's just one way of wording it as well. How do you deal with medical condition that alter your career? You just say that you had a medical condition. There's no point in hiding it. But you could just say that it enabled you to focus on what was important to you, and that from that time off, you learned where you wanted to go as a person, as a human being, and that gave you the motivation to become the best, I don't know, employee in the environmental sector. Just try to, even if it's just finding your motivation and finding a vision, then a career gap is worth it to the recruiters, because it gave you something. Just show that it made you a different person, and that you acquired something, even if it's a vision, even if it's learning a new language that has nothing to do with the field you're trying to work with. Just show them that you just didn't sit and do nothing. You sat, maybe did nothing, but in the end, you became, I don't know, very good at organizing your personal space. I don't know. Find something that will help them. If I'm going from a chief systems analyst to a break, then try entry level data analyst. Will they seem coherent? Making it seem coherent depends on your reasoning. Anything can be coherent if you find the right examples and the right arguments. So that just means that you have to find soft skills that are linked to both fields. So that makes you relevant for the post as a data analyst. And then if people are wondering why you would go to, why you'd want to go into an entry-level job, just say that you want to learn the processes or the methods of that field, of that job, of that sector, whatever, before moving up in the ladder. And something that's very important, and recruiters usually, they actually appreciate that type of thought process where you recognize that you are lacking some company experience or corporate experience in that field, and you might have many different skills. If you don't have those, then you're going to be lacking throughout the rest of your career. So it's just a way of wording it and making the recruiter understand why your previous experiences are relevant today. How would you explain that you are a company jumper? In other words, why you have involved in 1 month positions, for example? Well, I don't know how many 1 month experiences you've had, but usually the best way to work around them is to mention what you could do is why. Okay, if you've had 3, okay, then, for example, what I would do personally is in the interview process, when they're asking you to present yourself, talk about my educational background, talk about my mainly professional experiences, and then you can. I would end by saying, I want to be proficient in. I want to work, for example, on deep learning themes or subjects or whatever. And so my goal is to find the company that enables me to develop my skills in deep learning. And so I tried different companies previously. It did not work out because they were more focused, I don't know, on machine learning or whatever. And I decided that that would not be the place for me. That is why today I'm applying to this company, because it seems that the deep learning here is a lot more relevant or a lot more prominent, and that is why I'm here today. So just you present the information rather than waiting for them to see why you did that. And again, if it's not written out in your CV that you have 3 1-month internships, they're not going to know about them. So you could just mention 1 or 2, and then just you give a reasoning rather than wait for them to ask the question, and then you look like a bit. You don't look the best if you don't have those arguments ready. Is it possible to become a data scientist after working some years as a developer? Yes, of course. Of course. Nowadays, honestly, anything is possible if you put your mind to it. And that's why a data scientist has so many different courses enabling different people with so many various backgrounds to acquire those skills. But yes, it is absolutely possible to become a data scientist after having been a developer, just because of the way your mind is programmed and works is something that is immensely resourceful to the world of data sciences. You just have thought processes and methods that just work in the world of data sciences. So if you can pinpoint those soft skills, it will be a lot easier for you to sell your candidacy as a career changer. Is it possible to become a data scientist after working some years as a project manager too? Yes, of course. Of course. That is also very relevant because as a project manager, you've worked on very different themes, and also what you could say, one way of justifying it is that you've worked with a lot of different profiles and teams and just different people in general, which meant that you had to adapt yourself and just change the way you presented your information. And data scientists, they do that on a daily basis. They work with different teams as well, and they answer the needs of those different teams. And so that's one of the transferable skills that you could use to go from one career change to another, or from one career rather to another. So now let's get into resumes, and then we'll be done. So for the resume, first of all, what's really important is to keep in mind that your resume or CV or whatever you want to call it is the extension of your LinkedIn profile. So everything I've said previously has to be on your CV as well, or just at least some parts of it has to be on your CV as well. You don't want two different types of applications. It's one's a CV is just a shorter version of your LinkedIn profile. So as long as you've written it out nicely on your LinkedIn profile, then you'll have the information ready for your CV. So again, I'm not going to repeat everything I've said, but you just need to explain why you're going through a career change, what does that to profile, and what's most important, especially on your CV, is for the recruiter to see what the numbers are. What were the numbers in your previous experiences? What are the numbers of your training course right now? Just put those numbers in and illustrate everything you say on your CV. So to make that more visual, I'm using one of our data scientists' resume. I tweaked it a bit to make it a bit more understandable for us here. So first of all, in the introduction, which is this part over here, I hope you can still see my screen. Can you see the CV or not? Yeah, probably. Okay, so and you have to add an introduction that's usually 2 or 3 sentences max, and just say that you used to be, for example, a community manager or an archaeologist or a baker or whatever, and say that now you want to be a data analyst, data scientist in this field or or for this company, and that I am available starting January 2023, for example. Just try to be very concise and say what you did previously, what you want to do now, why you want to do it, and from when can you do it. Then for the skills, what you could do is have a subcategory for data science, and then you could put all your programming, machine learning, blah, blah, blah skills. And then you could have another subcategory for community management or whatever, and make that be a lot shorter, a lot smaller. You don't want it to be equal because you're not trying to find a job as a community manager, but show that you have transferable skills. And that's why you put all those skills that are going to be useful as a data scientist. Don't put stuff that is not going to be relevant. For example, if you know how to use Canva, wonderful. But if that's not directly linked to the job you're trying to get now, then don't put it in. That's just fluff, and we don't want fluff on the CV. You might want to add some fluff during your interview process, but not on your CV. You don't have the space for that. Then education, just put everything in there. You could also, if you want to, have very clear subheadings that say that this is relevant to the data sciences and that is relevant to something else. That's also a way to go. Then for the experiences, the goal, I believe, is to add a section on data scientist, and then you could put your training course or whatever. And then for your previous experiences that are not related to data sciences, add a section on hard skills or soft skills or whatever. Just add a skills section, add just 1 or 2 max. You don't want your CV to just be a catalog of your skills. That's not the goal. But just add a bit of skills and show what you've acquired, and then either you illustrate them or you don't. That's up to you. You don't want there to be too much information on your CV, but that's always things that are going to be interesting to the recruiter so they understand why your career change is a plus for them. So that's basically writing out the skills that you identified at the very beginning of your thought process that justify your career change. Oops, sorry. And yeah, that's basically it for your CV. It's not too hard to work around your CV if you have a nice LinkedIn. I usually recommend to start with LinkedIn because that's where you write out most of the information. You can write full sentences. It's a lot more user friendly when you don't really know where you're going. And then summarize your LinkedIn into your CV rather than doing it the other way around. But just make sure that both are very coherent. That's very, very important. And to get back to the GitHub link, that's usually where I would put it. I don't know why it's not here, but under the LinkedIn, just put GitHub. And yeah, are there any questions? And after a woodworker, yes, again, if you don't see hard skills that are transferable, then find those soft skills. If you're a woodworker, I imagine that you work with deadlines and that you have commissions or whatever. Find the things that make your daily job an organized structure and use that to fuel your arguments to become a data analyst, scientist, whatever. No, Angeliki, that's what I've been trying to say is that your previous experiences are relevant because they have enabled you to acquire soft skills, hard skills that are transferable into the world of data sciences. So that's why you don't want them to take up most of the space of the CV. That's definitely not the goal, but that's why I want you to add those hard skills or soft skills. That's why I want you to add the skills section of your CV or in your CV to make sure that they understand why you're going from one job to another. The CV I'm showing has 2 columns. Would that be a problem if trying to apply to a job site that utilizes an ATS? No, the 2 columns doesn't change much. You can work with another structure, but that's not true. Just make sure that your CV is nicely structured in the usual way and that you have all the required information. And so my last slide is transferable skills that you could use as a woodworker, for example. Maybe not a woodworker, because those are linked to, actually, let me just show them to you. Here. Actually, of course, they are absolutely relevant if you are a woodworker. You here have different skills that you could transfer from one career to another. So that's very interesting. And you could just use them in whatever section of your CV, whether it be the skill section or just a previous experience section where you just add a little subheading or subtitle or whatever links to skills. And here you've got a few. And yeah, that's it. We are done for tonight. Did I stop sharing my screen? Yes, I did. Are there any questions? With regards to the actual organization of your CV, that's something that's very personal. For me personally, I think that it's most important for data sciences to pop up. So yes, if you have no previous experiences in data science, then put education on top, and then you put your experiences. But one way of also doing that is just putting the skills on top and then putting experiences and then putting education, because usually that's the way it goes. Is there a limit for an appropriate number of pages in your CV? Yes, 1. We don't want more than 1 page on your CV. Just put yourself in the shoes of a recruiter. Recruiters, they see so many candidates. They see so many CVs. Just printing them out, they just do that all the time. like our HRs, they just are filled with CVs all the time. So make the job easier for them. Don't make them print 2 pages. They will not be looking at that second page. Put one single page. Everything has to fit in one page, and if it doesn't, that means that there's too much. So it's a bit of a puzzle. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but if you think about what's most relevant, usually it all fits in one page. Can we share this recording? Yes. This is a LinkedIn Live, so I imagine that you can, or YouTube Live, or it's a live, so yes, I imagine that you can. And what do you think of this CV you just showed in French? It works. It works. That's why this is usually a CV that is used for the French system, so it works. There aren't too many differences between the English and the French systems. Well, that's not technically true. The structure in itself is usually the same. The information is the same. It's just how you present them. For example, in the English system, you can't put your age. You don't put a picture. You have to be a lot more anonymous and focused on your skills. Whereas in the French system, you try to add a bit more about your life experiences or your life trajectory. That's the main differences. But with regards to content, it's basically the same: experiences, education, soft and hard skills. For ATS, no, it works. It works. You could use the CV in the French ATS system. Is the photo a must? No, it's not. You don't have to put a picture, and if it's not a very professional and nice picture, then do not put a picture. It is not going to work well for you. If you don't write your phone number in CV, I personally don't put a phone number in my CV because I just am not going to answer my phone. So I put my LinkedIn, I put my email address, and if HRs really want to contact me via phone number, they just ask. They'll just ask in an email, but I don't personally put my phone number. And also with regards to the city you're in, you could just put Paris, France, London, UK, whatever. You don't have to write out your entire address. Okay, no more questions. Then I think we're done. No questions? We recommended to put a photo on LinkedIn profiles. It's better to put a picture on a LinkedIn profile, yes. On LinkedIn, yes, it's a lot better because it's just a lot more visual, and recruiters are trying to look for something that catches their eye. So just put a nice picture if you can. It doesn't have to be as formal as a CV. But yeah, if you can, just try to put a picture. But if you're not comfortable with it, then don't do it. It's not going to make the entire difference in the recruitment process. Then it's not going to get down to just a picture. Thank you all for your time. I hope you enjoyed it. I was a bit rusty on my English, so I hope you understood everything I had to say. Don't hesitate if you have any questions to contact. I don't know who you could contact. If you're doing a training course, then contact Career Services or the people of the team. If you're not doing a training course, and you would like to, then you could just go to our website and contact the sales team. They're great. So I don't know where you are in the world, but if you are in France or in Europe rather, then have a nice evening. If you're anywhere else, then have a nice day. And yeah, don't hesitate if you have any questions. And I hope we'll see each other again very soon. Goodbye.